This is Got the Fix It Guide. Today we're dealing with a Viking professional oven that is not heating up correctly. It's not igniting or not cooking evenly. So this one is an example of one that is working. When you set it for heat, you should be able to look down underneath the oven door and see two flames, two igniters that fire up in about 60 seconds, and then two nice blue flames. So that would be an oven that's working correctly. And with this oven, we noticed that wasn't working quite right. Here's an example of an igniter that is working. As soon as you get a call for heat, it starts to glow bright. Here's the one on the left is an old one that is not working and it just doesn't quite fire up. The one on the right ignites with gas burning. The one on the left took another 20 minutes before it ignited. So that's the case. It's important to replace it with an igniter. Here's a generic igniter that works for this model and is also pretty cheap. You can get it on Amazon. We'll make sure we unplug it or turn off the power at the breaker box. And then we're just going to pull the door straight off. We pull it off at about 45 degrees and then lift up and the door comes out. We're going to remove this bottom panel by removing two Phillips head screws, one on the left, one on the right, so we can get to the wires that hook up to the igniter. So on this model there's two igniters, and if you have uneven baking, it could be that one of them is not working correctly. And if nothing lights up, then you have to replace both of them. So we're going to take out these racks, I'm going to lift this up and then pull it out at the top. Probably wisest to replace both igniters while you're in there because it takes a little bit of time to get to where you can replace the igniter, so it's good just to do them both at the same time. We're going to pull up on the one on the right and then pull it out at the top. And now we'll be able to lift the bottom panel off with the heat deflector. Kind of heavy, so take your time. Pull that off, and then you'll have good access to get to both igniters. So we're pulling the bottom panel out of the way, and there's the igniter on the left and the igniter on the right, and they're just held in by some Phillips head screws. And we're just going to put a little bit of lubricant on the threads. You can use any kind of oil. This stuff works pretty good though. But any kind of like 3-in-1 oil, mineral oil would work. Just put a little bit on each one of the threads. And then we're going to be removing the igniter on the right first. We just have to undo the wires for that igniter and then just spin out those two Phillips head screws. The one on the left is a little bit harder to get to. Takes a little bit more steps, but this one's pretty easy. So we got the screws out, can lift it up, and we just have to remove these two wires that hold it in place, or that give it power. Then we can just pull the whole thing out. And then all we need to do is just cut the wires from the old one and splice them onto the new igniter. The new igniter doesn't come with modular wire connectors. They're just regular wires. So we're going to use the old wire from the old igniter. We're going to cut it off, and then we use these ceramic wire nuts to connect it. Now we're going to pull the wires through the firewall, and once we get them through, then we can just put those Phillips head screws back in on that igniter. Make sure you get the wires all the way through because you don't really want any wire in that oven cavity where it gets super hot. Any excess wire. So we got that in position. We're just going to thread those Phillips head screws back in. And then we'll tighten them down, and then we'll reconnect the two wires that bring power to the igniter. It's really good to do these one at a time so you don't get the wires mixed up. So just one igniter, replace it, and then do the other igniter. So we got the wires hooked back up. We turn it on, and then within a few seconds you should get the glow, should get brighter and brighter, and eventually almost white hot, and then you should get ignition. The one on the left is still the old one, so we can see it's kind of anemic, not doing much, and that's why you get this kind of uneven heating of the oven. So there's the one on the right working good. So now we're going to replace the one on the left, but to do it we're going to remove the burner tube. We have to remove a couple of screws here. They're just Phillips head screws.